Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to ADHD is My Superpower, the podcast that's being brought to you by Giovanni and Lion and Candy. All of us are working for different ways to bring enlightenment to ADHD and some other things as well, and to show you all that this is not a taboo subject and we should not have to hide or we can talk about it openly. So, today we have a great guest that's coming on with us, and we are really excited about having you all here and learn some of the struggles and things that we're going through within life. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and bring on our guest, Miss Lillian. Give her a round of applause. Yes. Now, for our listeners who don't know anything about you, they'll be able to read something I write, they'll be able to read a bio. But for a moment, can you tell them who you are, what you're doing, and why you're here talking about ADHD?
Okay, yes, it is absolutely a pleasure being here with you and your son today. It's exciting to talk to another Black person. Not to sound prejudiced, but it's just something we don't do in the Black community. But I am L. LaShawn. The ADHD cutie is how I'm known on social media. I advocate for Black women, especially single Black moms like myself, who are struggling with our own ADHD while we're trying to help our children and teach them to advocate for their ADHD as well.
I absolutely love that, and it's something that you just said. And for everyone who knows about my podcast in general, myself, this is a new one for the listeners. We have my wife and I have two separate ones, but they already know that just because we're talking about something that's built for our community and built for our culture doesn't mean that we're discriminating or don't want others involved in it. It's just that most
Right.
people don't talk about it in our communities. So
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
breaking that
No.
stigma. We're trying to get out
Yes.
of that. And it's very
Yes.
important because as kids, a lot of times, especially with black kids, they they see them running around as we were talking about before, and it said, "Oh, you're just
Hmm.
hyper. Don't give them that much candy or something." And
Uh huh. Hmm.
it goes way deeper than that. And for a while, my wife and I, we
Yes.
were kind of in that. We were like, oh, he'll grow out of it. He was diagnosed about 5 years old. So he's been having it for about 3 to 4 years old. He's 8 now. Um,
Hmm.
so we had to learn, and we'll get into this in a little while, but we eventually went to medicine and we had to really think about that. But I know just really quick before Giovanni gets into his questions, I wanted to find out a little bit about yourself, as you said that you know in this world we weren't taught to talk about it. We weren't able to have it spoken to us as when we were kids. What are some things you think as a kid that you would have liked for maybe someone to do for you when you were coming up with that?
Well, for me as a kid, I really felt okay because I had pretty much all the things that you really need to help to minimize your symptoms, which is plenty of exercise, good meals, good eating habits, fresh air and sunshine every day, and adequate amount of sleep, decreased screen time. I had all of that in the foster family that I was raised. So for me, I felt good. I mean, I hated school, but because of the anxiety that I had, I always was worried about making sure I did good. And then having my foster mom, as the ruler of the house, making sure that I did that, that was enough for me. So I made sure that my grades stayed up because I always wanted to make her proud. I wanted her to be happy all the time with me. So I tried to do my best. But I had all the other things to really help me to minimize my ADHD symptoms. It wasn't until I lost my foster mom right at the beginning of my senior year in high school. I was only 16. I had already lost my foster father at 11, but losing her, that completely changed my whole world. And that traumatic experience is what I really think started triggering things for me because I just didn't care for so long. I was just so stuck in that grief of losing her. And I could see that I was struggling to finish high school. I struggled through college, but I attributed it to, losing my foster mom, losing my mom. To me, she was mom. And especially the freshman year of college, that was so difficult because, that's when the parents are bringing their kids to college, dropping them off, that leaving the nest syndrome and being all on your own, all that experience. And then throughout the years, they're coming to visit, sending care packages. I missed out on all of that from a mom's perspective. I had family doing that, but it's just not the same when it's mom doing it. So I just kind of just went through life trying to figure things out, thinking that I'm just stuck in grief. And it wasn't until fast forward when I had my son and I was 36 years old. And he was diagnosed very early with his ADHD because he was born 2 months early. He was only 2.5 pounds. So when I took him to his very first pediatrician appointment, they told me that he would have some developmental delays and I would probably see more as he got older and went through school. And she was right. I did see some delays. Even like when he was a baby, he was delayed in his just normal things that babies do in their stages of development, like falling on their bottom, pulling themselves up to stand, and crawling, walking, rolling over, all those things. I mean, like the first time I saw him when he could pull himself up, but falling, it's like he didn't know how to do that as a baby. I mean, he would fall like a tree, just boom, and smacking his head every time he was doing that. I'm freaking out. I'm like, oh my God, he's just gonna kill himself. So I called the pediatrician and they said, you've got to remember that he's not supposed to be here. He's 2 months early. So you're gonna have to literally teach him how to do these things until his brain catches up. And so, that's what I did.
Wow.
So,
It's like the
hmm
whole time I'm sitting there listening to them, I'm like, man, and it goes into something, and Giovanni has a question in a second, but it goes into something that I say often is that we don't know what we don't know until we know.
yes,
We don't have a
know it. Yes.
manual. We're not taught here is step one, here's step two.
No,
So it's like you're figuring it out,
no.
Yes,
and it's
yes.
not a no, I don't want to say norm, not normal, but it's not a thing you see often. So you're like you said, I'm
N-
like he's gonna do this, and it's crazy. And so
It is crazy.
And for those listeners who are listening to this maybe for the first time and not knowing what it is, in a nutshell, ADHD is just basically you're like like a dog chasing a squirrel all the time. You're trying to focus on one thing, and you see those commercials or those movies, and the dog goes squirrel. So it's something else, right?
Oh, a squirrel.
Yeah, exactly. And just like even as we're sitting here recording this, he's moving and he's grabbing his shirt, and I'm just like, like, hey,
hmm
relax. But it's like he said, it's not controlable. He doesn't even know he's
He
doing it.
can't help it. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
and so
as long as he's not messing up anything, destroying
yeah,
anything,
destroying my
hey,
plants.
hey,
So
let him do.
here's a question. So go ahead, Giovanni. What's your first question here? Grab your paper. There you go. And then remember, speaking to the mic, okay?
How many kids with ADHD do you have?
Okay.
I only have one child, and he is the one with ADHD. He's now 19.
Wow.
Okay.
Is
So
he in
Mhm.
college?
he's
He took a non-traditional route. He got an apprenticeship, which means it's a program that they pay to train him specifically in a skill. that he will use to specifically do a job
Yes.
with that
Very
skill.
good.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so
I
for him, it's he's what they call them, cell phone tower repair technicians.
okay. Very good.
So he just learned the skills for that, and the apprenticeship
Yeah.
paid for everything.
And for the listeners who are trying to hear this for the first time, who might be saying, and I'll tell you why we do this. Someone might be out there listening and say, hey, that sounds like something that my child is going through, or maybe I'm going through. And it's very, very uh, rewarding because just the other day, we're talking to an associate and they listened to one of the episodes prior to podcast. And then they were like, oh, you know what? I thought my daughter has it. And we spoke about how we work to give him one task at a time only, and she was telling
Hmm.
us a story of how her daughter goes left, right, up, and down. She's like, I listen to you guys, and that's what I'm gonna start doing. Right. So this is a
Hmm.
great resource, and we love doing that. And even to the point where you just said, jobs are tough for people with ADHD. Certain jobs,
Yes.
learning is
Mm-hmm.
tough.
Yes.
It's not that they just learn differently. And I was never
Exactly.
diagnosed with it, but I honestly think that I have it because it said that
Hmm.
one parent has it, and my wife
Yes,
obviously is the one
it's
who has it.
highly, yeah, it's
Mm-hmm.
But
highly hereditary. So one of the parents definitely has it.
yeah, so that means my wife has it then. So yeah. So,
Yeah, okay.
but no, I know I seriously, and as I sit back and think about my life, I'm like, yo, that sounds. So if you're listening to this and you hear some
Hmm.
things, you're like, yo, that sounds like me. I can't focus. I
Yeah.
can't do that,
Hmm.
and so forth. And
That is exactly how I got my diagnosis. Because dealing with my son through his 12 years of schooling, I kept seeing the same comments, hearing the same comments. We would go on over the same thing in the meetings, emails, phone calls. It was always the same thing. And then I'm like, oh my God, that's what they say about me at work. And then another comment is, oh my God, that's what they say about me at home. And this is what my friends say when we're hanging out and doing our happy hour or whatever. I'm like, well, maybe I need to get checked. And that's what led me to do more research, getting my diagnosis and what have you. Because until you deal with your own ADHD, you're really not able to effectively help your child. You can do some things, but it made a world of difference when I understood that I had it also. So I
yeah,
had to learn about me as an adult with ADHD in addition to dealing with his child ADHD. And
yeah.
there is a big difference. And me as a woman, my ADHD symptoms are different from him as a male.
Right. Yeah. And
Mhm.
one of the things that we've been working on, my wife and I, is we just recently started a Facebook kind of support group. And one of the reasons why is because we're in other ADHD support groups in Facebook, but it seems as though they start going the wrong direction. Then they started
Mhm.
allowing uh, people to come in and start talking about medical situations and everything.
Mhm.
And everyone's, like you say, your lady and yours is different than your son's, so everyone
Mhm.
is different. But then in that group you
Yes.
get one person asking one question, and now you have 1,000 parents coming on with 1,000 different answers, and so it's not like
Mhm.
you're getting
Mhm.
a real support kind of effort there. And so we said,
Yeah.
you know what, we want to come and start a group where there's none of that. There's no sales, there's no one trying to, get you to buy their program or their course. It's just all about, people supporting each other, especially in the Black community as
Mhm.
well. And again,
Yes.
all are
Yes.
welcome, but it is totally different when we see young Black kids out there running around,
Yes.
because the the the
Mhm.
the norm that people say is that, oh, that's just baby kids, or it's just,
Mhm.
you
Mhm.
know it,
And
it, it seems to be that way.
the problem is because everybody in society thinks that about that black kid.
Yeah.
The police, the courts, the
Mhm.
teachers. That is the problem. That's really where the problem comes in because they don't see and they don't understand and they're not trained
Yeah.
to know what the symptoms of ADHD look like. So when they stop that kid and that kid is asking all these questions, which I know my son would do, they see him as being a little smart mouth.
Yeah. Yeah.
My
Exactly how
kid's
it
not being
says.
a smart mouth. He's trying to understand why what's happening is happening.
Yeah. We
And just
interpret
because you
information
explain
differently.
it in a way that makes sense, right? Just because you explain it to him in a way that makes sense to you doesn't mean it makes sense to you. And my kid will keep asking questions until it makes sense to him. But the police and law enforcement will definitely misinterpret that as, oh, you want to be a little wise mouth. You a little smart. Yeah, okay, you one of those.
Yeah. We raise our
That's
kids so differently. Even when we go in the store,
mm-hmm,
I tell him hands out of your pockets, right? Just because we're
mm-hmm,
looked at differently. And then when we get, uh, answered a question with something, we interpret things so differently. And so I know when someone approaches him, he, it's like you said, he's going to ask questions differently and so forth.
mm-hmm.
And speaking of another question, we have a second question from Giovanni. Go ahead and read it. Remember, hold it up so you can see it. There you go.
How many? Wait,
Speak into the
how
mic.
many? How do you handle kid with ADHD?
So what are your techniques when you were raising your son with it? Some ways that you work with it and through it, and then we'll share some of ours.
Okay. Um, well, it changed as he got older, but um, we started early when he was in school with getting him diagnosed, getting that diagnosis in his school records, and trying to get him an IEP, which he was always denied. So we eventually got a 504, but it was so spotty and just, to me, more for their benefit to say that they've made an attempt to put something in place for him. But to me, it's just like, no, this won't do that. That may be satisfactory for you, but this is not at all going to help my kid. So we would go back and forth on getting the 504 in place. His pediatrician was very, very instrumental in helping us. He also had a vision processing issue, which most people confuse with 20/20 vision. Is completely different. It is how the brain processes what it sees. And he had like 6 to 7 different issues in that area, which the school, of course, did not understand and just pretty much kind of ignored. Because he wore glasses, they assumed that the problems were being dealt with. But we had those accommodations added into his 504 plan. And it took a fight just to get that because he wears glasses, so we don't understand what's wrong. I had to have the vision specialist attend one of the 504 meetings and give them a breakdown like we were in kindergarten to help them to understand. And I wish I had taken a video recording of the looks on their faces. They had no clue what she was talking about. That is a part of the problem because they don't know what they're dealing with. They don't understand what they're dealing with. So, how do they know how to help him? They
Yeah,
don't.
exactly.
And
Yeah.
so I stayed in touch with his doctors, getting accommodations added on at home. I would watch a lot of YouTube videos, get researching done, and try to implement things for him. Like one of the things, like you said with your son, he's moving around all the time. My son did that. We eventually got one of those yoga balls where he could just sit on it and move on it as much as he could, but he was still at the desk. We even got his teachers in some of his classes, not all of them were willing to do that, but they would let him go to the back of the class and stand up for a while and do his schoolwork, or even if he was listening while they were talking, because it's very hard for them to just sit still and listen to all that ongoing talking. I can relate to that because I still have problems with that. I would get him those little spinny toys or something he could hold in his hand, but small enough that he could put in his pocket so it wasn't distracting to the class. But it would help him to focus because he's squeezing or spinning those in his pocket to help him to stay focused.
Yeah,
We even got things added into his 504 plan, like where he could bring his cell phone to school and he could use his headphones to help him focus like while he was taking tests and things like that, but it was specific for timing in the classroom.
yeah. Very
A
nice.
lot of
Very
those things
nice.
really helped. And then the last thing we did was um, I ended up getting him an executive function skills coach, which
Ooh.
is totally different from a tutor
Okay.
because the executive function skills coach helps him to understand and break down how to do what he needs to do.
Mm.
The tutor is teaching them what they need to do. The executive function skills coach teaches them how to get it started, which is what most of us struggle with because that's part of our executive function skills here in the frontal lobe. There's a deficiency there. There's a major deficiency in most of our executive function skills if you have ADHD. A lot of us don't know about that. We don't hear about that. I
Yeah.
didn't hear about that until my son was almost at the end of 10th grade.
Wow.
Ah,
Wow. And so
Yeah.
this is why we started doing what we're doing. So you just mentioned a couple of things just now. One, I didn't know about the executive function coach. So now I'm going to look into that. And so maybe another listener or
Hmm.
someone who is listening is going to be it's like, hey, I should kind of maybe look into something like that. And for our listeners, let me give you just a couple of little things that were mentioned that might be able to help you out. For an example, like IEP, it was just an individual learning plan. Basically, it kind of means individualized educational plan is what it's called, but it's something
Expansion plan. Hmm.
specifically for your child in school. And we are denied. We've tried that, and we're still going to keep fighting for it, but we have been denied that as well. So we're going to try to look into some different options because last week or about 2 weeks ago, there was a nationwide shortage on his medicine, and uh,
Oh, wow.
yeah, so he went a whole week without it, and it was a whole different world.
Wow.
His
Wow. Oh
teacher
my gosh. Yeah.
came out to the vehicle when I went to go pick him up, and she came to the car. She didn't call for a meeting. She didn't call for, hey, can you just come here? She said, I need to go tell his parents right now. She said, can you do something? She's like, I can't handle it.
I have a hack for that.
Go ahead.
I have
Go
a hack
ahead.
for that.
Let us know.
I have a hack for that. Now, let me tell you, and when I told my granddad, his granddad, which was my adoptive dad at the time, he hit the ceiling, but it worked like a charm. So much so that his aftercare program adopted it,
Okay.
and that is to give him just 8 ounces of Mountain Dew. Now, I know Mountain Dew is for truckers
Hi.
to keep them awake, but it has the complete opposite effect on the ADHD brain.
Oh.
It worked wonders. So I would always have that as a backup whenever my son would forget to take his meds because his teachers were like you were saying. I mean, they were on the phone. Oh my God, what happened today? He's
Yeah.
just off the charts and da 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 da. I was like, do you have any Mountain Dew?
Yeah.
No, we don't have that in the class. Okay, I guarantee one of your soda machines on the school grounds has Mount. Get him 8 ounces of Mountain Dew, and you will see a significant difference.
Eight
So the
ounces.
school started doing it. The aftercare program did it. His kung fu teachers did it. Yeah, it works. It definitely works.
Perfect. So,
But you got to remember, it comes out of their system whenever they void.
okay.
So whenever he goes to the bathroom, it's gone.
Right. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So, and for all the listeners, let us just go ahead and say this. That is not a medical
Medical.
advice.
No.
So, we don't give any medical information. So, if you do that,
No.
do it,
That is what worked for
trial
me
and
and my
error.
kid.
Right.
Yeah, that's
I'm
what
going to
worked
try
for
it
me
though.
and my kid.
Yeah,
Yes.
I am going to try it though,
Hmm.
to see if that works. 8 ounces, because if I give them too much, like
Yes,
man,
just 8 ounces.
we
Yes,
have we have
just eight
little
ounces.
funny things that we do. Like we'll be in a vehicle or we're somewhere, and we know he just needs to talk. He just and
Hmm.
half the time, so we get into that. Yeah, okay, So and then eventually we'll go, Giovanni, 5 minutes. 5 minutes, just give us 5 minutes. And said,
That's funny. That's because my son was the complete opposite in the car. When he got in the car, it's like he was in this aha zone. He was just like so amazed with everything. He was so quiet. We had to keep checking on him to make sure he was back there and okay
oh,
cuz he was so quiet in the back. And the only thing that would really get him excited and talking is when he saw cell phone towers. How
ah,
crazy is that? Because now that's what he's doing as a job, right? So,
yes. That's
I mean,
see,
He would go off when he saw a cell phone tower. You would think that, I don't know, he met a superstar or something.
Yeah.
That's how excited he got every time he saw one.
Yeah.
Every time.
Yeah. Nice. It's crazy. And so for
Hmm.
the listeners, we're also recording this in a video format, which you can also be able to watch. We'll put that links and everything inside the description. But on our
Okay.
screen, we have a like a brain kind of logo, and it has ADHD across it, and it has all kind of words and everything. And that's basically what the brain is looking like for someone with ADHD. Everything so maybe
Yes.
you're focusing, if you don't have it, you're focusing on one thing, but your child is focusing on 30 different things at one time, basically.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
last time we did a interview with Giovanni, he was talking about how he felt when he didn't take his medicine. Because I know some parents are so resistant against that. And for us, we were for
Yes.
years, but we
Yes.
studied it and it works
Hmm.
for him. He comes to us and says,
Yes.
I want to take my medicine because he
Yes.
told us
Yeah. They'll
it,
tell you they need it. Yep.
yeah, his brain feels what did you say? Your brain feels what?
Sick.
Sick. He says my brain feels sick when I
And it
don't
kind of
take it.
feels tingly.
And it feels
Hmm.
tingly and it's always moving, he said to us. So
And
we
it is. That's
yeah,
exactly
so
what's
we
going
give it
on.
to
Yep.
him. And and for ADHD, the meaning is attention. I mean, I always get this wrong. Attention deficit
Deficit
hyper
hyperactivity
activity, right? And then the
disorder.
last
Yeah.
D is disorder. There it goes.
Disorder. Yeah.
Um,
But that's such a misinterpretation because it's not a deficit in attention.
yeah,
We pay attention to everything. We just have
yeah,
trouble focusing
focusing.
in
Yeah,
on one thing.
right. So y'all need to do AFHD. It's just a little bit harder to
Yes, and
say.
it's not a disorder. That's not
Right.
a disorder.
Yeah. And
It's a dysfunction maybe, but not a disorder.
yeah, and that's one reason why, again, for the listeners,
AFHD.
and we'll put a picture up. That's one reason why we've worked to empower him with it. We made a logo with him on as Superman with
Superman.
ADHD
Yeah.
going across his chest. So we tell him, "Hey, it's nothing wrong with you, buddy. It's just something
Yeah.
your superpower. You're different." So
Yeah.
instead of
Your brain works differently. That's it.
yeah, making him feel bad. And so I think we have one
Hmm.
last question from him, and then
Yes.
we get ready to wrap it up. Speaking to the mic, buddy. Speaking to the mic.
When you were a kid, did you suffer with ADHD?
Oh, so you have it when you were a kid, and how did you deal with it?
Um, well, that goes back to what I was saying with when I was growing up. I grew up in the country, so if I had it, it was very mild, and I didn't know I had it. I know I was loved to be outside, always running around, doing things. Couldn't stick to one thing for very long. ADHD wasn't talked about back then, and I don't even think a lot of people knew what it was, especially in the black community. So it was just, she's just being a kid. She's out in the country. She's just being a kid.
Yeah,
Um, I know I used to get in trouble all the time in school for talking, but again, I thought that that was just me. Something was wrong with me. I didn't realize that that was a sign or symptom of ADHD, which it is. Almost every ADHD person I've talked to has said that they've gotten in trouble for talking too much in
yeah.
school. We tend to ramble on about something that we really like. We may
Oh
interject or
yes.
interrupt conversations. I'd get in trouble for that, but didn't realize again that that was symptoms of ADHD.
Yeah,
That's a big part of why I do what I do. I'm bringing awareness so people understand what the symptoms look like.
yeah. Very
We're
important.
not being rude, we're not lazy, we're not stupid, we're not
Mm-hmm.
flighty and airhead and all of that stuff that they seem to see. You don't understand what you're seeing. I even gave a breakdown of that to my son's school when we had one of our 504 meetings. I took all the comments that they kept giving me and I looked them all up on online and gave them all a handout. I said, that is a symptom of ADHD, and so is that, and so is that, and so is that. That is what ADHD looks like in your classroom.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
That's what they don't understand because they get this generalized course or whatever it is that they get about ADHD, and they all seem to think that it's this little, sorry, European or Caucasian kid running around hyper.
yeah,
ADHD does not discriminate, it's not prejudice. And your ADHD teens and adults
Mm.
are all
Mm-hmm.
ADHD children that never got
Never.
diagnosed when they were children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what you're getting. It does not go away.
Yeah.
Some
Yes.
of their symptoms may minimize, but most of those symptoms you see are manifested in their behavior. It's not going away because either they don't know they have ADHD,
Mm.
or it was misdiagnosed, or it was overlooked. So they're still not getting any kind of treatment.
Wow. It is so true to the words you're saying because as you're sitting there saying that, I'm like, that was me as a kid. That was me. I did that.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
don't ever think I got diagnosed. And some people say, well, why don't you go get diagnosed at this point? I'm like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. But this is so great and we're loving it. And for anyone out there who's listening, you're not alone. We have support groups, we have ways and resources. Talk to other parents. For an example, if you
Yes.
were talking to someone, that 8 ounce Mountain Dew thing, it might work for your child, right? But you
Mhm.
would have never known unless you listen to this and hear. And we're going to spread the word and we're going to continue. Come to the group. It's ADHD. Let me just look it up, make sure I have the learning and resources. My wife, my producer, my ear just told me, my wife producer, ADHD Learning and Resources group on Facebook. And when you look it up, there is a picture of him with the Superman outfit on. It says
Mhm.
ADHD, so you'll know you're in the right spot. And this group is going to be designated to just learning, resources, and empowerment of parents. It's for anyone who feels like their kid may have it. We're not here to sell you anything. We're going to be bringing on guests and putting podcast things so people can listen and watch some of the videos. So come and do that. And we just really want to say to you that you're not alone. Stick with us. Stay here. Your kid might be a bad one. They may not have ADHD, but
They may not have ADHD.
but you
Don't
can
be
still
blaming
learn.
all that badness on
Right,
ADHD.
right. You may still come and talk and find someone in your neighborhood, find someone close to you. And sometimes you may not have someone in your neighborhood, or your neighborhood may not provide resources. So reach out beyond that. And that's what we're here for. So any last
May
final
I
words you like
ask?
to tell? Oh, sure, go ahead.
No, yeah. May I ask Giovanni a question?
Go. Oh,
Oh, okay.
okay. Go. Can she ask you a question?
Okay.
All right. Stop rubbing first. He's here moving right now. And I'm like,
It's
focus.
okay. It's okay. Been there, done that. I already know. I already know. Okay. Giovanni, what is one question or one thing that you wish your teachers knew or understood
Oh,
about you
wow.
having ADHD, how your brain works?
Oh
What's
my
one thing you would say?
goodness. That's such a great. Okay, let me hush my mouth.
Hmm.
Go for it.
Um, I would think it's hard for kids with ADHD because some students in my class have suffered ADHD before.
So
And
what would you want your teacher to know? What would you?
What do you want your teachers
oh,
to know?
it's
Yeah.
hard to be controlled with
To sit still?
mhm and
Hmm.
not move because it
Hmm.
like with the 8 ounce Mountain Dew because sometimes I forget to.
Okay.
Hmm.
All right. So we're gonna decipher that somehow, but see, we're gonna take our time
I
and
understand. I understood what he's saying. I know he's
okay.
saying that because in the classroom nowadays, I mean, all along you're expected to sit still and be quiet and do your work and da 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 da. And with
Yeah.
ADHD, it's very hard for a kid to just sit still, especially at his age. He's not able to say to the teacher, "I can't sit still,"
Yeah.
because my brain doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
But even as he gets into middle school, if he's to say that, the teacher will probably shut him down. Oh, that's just an excuse, or
Yeah.
what have you. So even if they're trying to explain it, they may understand it a little better. Even if they're trying to explain it, the teacher may not want to hear that because she doesn't understand it herself.
Right. Yeah. And you know what? I didn't ask you. What are some? Where can people find you? If they do, you have any pages where you talk to people? Where can they find you if
Um,
they said, "Hey, I love hearing her, and I want to talk to her. I want her on my podcast. I just want to hear her voice again." Where can they find you?
okay. I have my personal Facebook page, which is Lillian L. Fairley. I have a private group Facebook page, which you can DM me and ask to join, and that is focusing on a better you. I have a YouTube channel, and Instagram, Twitter, and all of them, I believe, are under the ADHD cutie.
All right, ADHD
Yeah.
cutie. And let me spell that for the listeners. It's LILLIANFAIRLEY. And we'll have those in the show
Yeah.
notes for you all so you can look
Right.
at it.
But in the notes you'll want to put L LaShawn Fairley. I don't go by the Lillian. I go by
Okay.
L
So
LaShawn.
L
LaShawn is my middle name.
LaShawn Fairley. All right, great.
Right.
So thank you so much for this conversation. This has been so enlightening. We've learned a couple of things
I've
here as well.
loved it. Yes, I've
Yeah,
loved it. Thank you so much for
absolutely.
having me
Thank you
on.
for
This has
being
been
on the
refreshing
podcast.
talking to another African American
Yeah,
and speaking out loud about it, especially a male.
yeah.
Especially a male. This is just so exciting. Yes.
Yeah, I am really that, and that's one reason why I pushed for this because in my regular podcast, it was a moment where I was talking, and I was doing investments and business and talking that stuff, and then my wife, we looked at the statistics. She said, you've got about 70% women in your audience for whatever reason. You need to talk about something different. And I was like,
Hmm.
duh. I'm a guy. I'm simple, right? So I was like, okay. So let me start bringing on
Like what?
other things. Yeah, that people want to enjoy. So I really appreciate that.
Hmm.
Just hold on for me for 1 second as I do a little
Okay.
housekeeping and pay some of these bills, and I'm gonna come right
Yeah.
back to you. Okay? So just one
Thank you
Okay.
sec.
for being on our podcast.
Thank you so much, Giovanni. It was very nice meeting you.
You
So just
too.
1 second. So, all right, ladies
Okay.
and gentlemen, thank you all for tuning in to our first episode officially of ADHD is my superpower. We're going to be working to bring you more and more information that's valuable and content to you all. We appreciate that. And just follow us and give us a rating if you're on this. We would love it because your vision of what this can become is very important for us to help us grow and maybe potentially get other guests to come on, and talk about different things. We sincerely appreciate that. Thank you, each and all. And Giovanni has one last thing he wants to say to you
Make
guys.
sure you subscribe and hit the like button.
Oh, now it's coming from a kid, so you have to do it, right? It's like you can't be immune to that, right? It's like seeing puppy dog eyes. You have to, I have to do it, right? So thank you guys, and you guys have a great day. And I'll say my outro. We'll come up with the outro at one point, but usually on my podcast. Oh, also if you want to cross listen, just one question with Lion Flood is my podcast. My wife's podcast is Connect with Candy,
Candy.
which is about women empowerment. So thank you guys very much. And you all have a great day. And keep remembering to live while you are alive.